Hi everyone, Savannah here, and this one's a special bonus sketch exclusively for my Patreon members. Today we're creating a whimsical fairy resting on a flower drinking something nice and warm. I'm using my custom brushes, which you can find in the description down below. Let's get started. The first thing we're doing is changing that background, so go into layer, select the background color, and go into your palettes. We're going to find the fairy color palette. We're going to do this, it's called grayish yellow green color. That's what our background's going to be. Then add a new layer, bring it below the template layer. Grab this, it's called brown, but it's really an orangish color. That circle brush, and we're going to start tracing parts of this flower. I am going to do them on separate layers for the different petals so that we can add details without interfering with any of the other petals. But go ahead and start tracing and filling in this petal, and we'll work on building it up, adding shadows, highlights, everything like that as we go along in this video. Now we're going to add a new layer for another petal. We are going to use the same brush, same color, and we're just going to trace this petal here to the left. And again, we're going to keep building up on all these petals. We'll add details in a second, but let's get the base colors finished here. So keep adding new layers for each petal. You can do, so I selected a slightly lighter color. You can do lighter colors just so you can see the variation as you're adding in these layers, but you don't have to. You could do it all the same, color. It just makes it a little bit easier so you can see where they're going. And now I'm going to go through and just modify and tweak any edits I want to do to these petals here. Make sure that they are looking how I want them to look. Make sure the edges are clear and concise, and then we will move on to adding details. Now let's go ahead and alpha lock all of these layers so that we could start working on the details, adding highlights, shadows, making them look a little bit more like petals. I'm going to start with the lowest level petal here, and I'm going to grab that mid-tone orange color, that circle blend brush. I'm just going to start slightly adding in some of this color here. I'm just going very lightly with the brush, giving it a little bit of texture on the petal here, and I'm going to go back and forth between that orange and this darker color, add in a little bit of this light yellow color as well, and just keep building up between those three colors. And I am going to make this one a little bit darker because it is tucked behind some of these other petals. So there's going to be some shadow from that. So I don't want it to be too bright. So that's why I'm going back in with this darker color to just darken it a little bit. Now we'll go back to this back petal. There is going to be a lot more light because this one is closest to where that fairy is sitting. And so I'm adding a lot of white towards the bottom middle here of this flower petal, and then I'll blend it out. But again, there's going to be a little bit of this glow from where this fairy is sitting, and so I want to add a little bit of lightness to this. And I'm kind of just dragging the pencil back and forth across the screen here as I'm blending this out. I like the texture. I think it kind of gives it a little bit more of a petal look to it. So that's what I'm kind of doing with this technique here. With this being a pressure sensitive brush, you're able to do that pretty easily. You could do a little bit lighter press if you want to blend it a little with more of that original color, or you can do harder press if you want more of the newer color. But I'm going to kind of do this technique as I build up these colors here for this back petal. And I am going to add a little bit more lightness to the tip here in some of the areas of the petal. I'm just going to have like a secondary light coming down from the top, shining down into this petal that's kind of giving that glow where the fairy is. So that's what I'm kind of adding here to the tip of the flower petal. And we're going to continue this technique that we did for that back petal and that first petal through all of the other petals here. So we're going to keep using those three main colors, adding the different definitions, highlights, shadows, everything that we need to kind of make these each unique in their own way. And we're just going to, like I said, continue doing this for all the petals before we move on to the next step. Now for this final petal, I did design it so that there's a little bit of a curved over edge here. So I'm going to add a lot of the color to the right side and then a little bit on the left side. I'm going to bring it down so it's not going all the way up. And then we'll build on that petal part that's kind of bent backwards. We'll add some definition to that so that it looks more like an actual petal that is bent backwards. And I am going to turn the outline layer or the template layer back on for this. I'm going to grab that really light yellow color just so I could see where I added that edge for this petal here. And I'm just going to add that light color here and then we'll blend it out. So it's not going to be this stark light yellow color. This is just so that I can see where that placement's going to be. And then I'll add the detail in, the shadows and details in a second. Now I'm going to pick that medium orange color and I'm going to add just a little bit to the edge here, to the lip here. As it's further away from the center, it's not going to be as bright. And so I'm going to bring that color down a little bit with this orange. And then I'm going to blend that up towards the center to give it, again, more of that petal look. And then I'm going to do the same thing that we did with that mid-tone orange. I'm going to do that with the darker color and bring that up a little bit, blend it out. And then I'm going to add some more darkness underneath of where the petal that's kind of curling backwards. I'm going to put some shadow underneath of there just to make it a little bit more defined and make it look like it is actually kind of folded over. And then I'm going to blend that downwards into the petal. And to make it not as dark, grab that mid-tone orange. We'll just blend some of that back into the space. And now with the petals done, we're going to work on the stem. So add a new layer. We're going to grab this really dark brown color, that circle brush, and just outline and fill in the shape, and then we'll add details in a second. And then turn that layer to alpha lock. We're going to add some detail. So grab that mid-tone brown color. I'm going to put a lot of this lighter color towards the top of the stem because that's where that light source is coming from. So I'm just using that circle blend brush, adding some lightness to the top here around this area. You don't have to be perfect with this. Just add some of this color here and then we'll blend it out. And then we want to do the same thing with that very light brown color. So just add a little bit throughout. You don't have to go the whole area that you did with that mid-tone color, but we just want to add a little bit of that lighter color here. And then grabbing that mid-tone brown color, we can use that to blend these colors out a little bit better. And now that the stem is complete, we're going to work on the fairy. So we're going to use that dark brown color for the fairy, for the fairy's hair. And we're going to start filling in on a new layer the shape of the fairy. We'll add some details, some highlights, some shadows again. Using that circle brush though, we're going to start with the hair and fill that in, and then we'll keep working through the other areas of this fairy. Now I do end up changing the hair here. You'll see I'll modify it even more throughout and then completely scrap it and start over. People are not usually my forte, and so I try to keep things pretty simple, pretty basic, but it just was not turning out how I wanted it to look. So I just scrapped it and redid it towards the end. So you can keep it this way if you want. You can change it with me down the road if you want. We're going to add in the other details. So add a new layer below the hair layer. Grab this dark brown color, the lighter of the dark brown colors, and we're going to trace the face here. And now grab that darker orangish color that we use on the petals, make a new layer, and we're going to use that for the outfit of the fairy here. And you can go along the edge of the flower petal here. I just decided to bring that flower petal above the fairy because I want that to be in front of the fairy. They're kind of tucked inside of this flower, so I wanted that to be the furthest or closest to you. And now add a new layer, grab this orange color. We're going to use that for the cup that they're holding, and we're just going to trace and fill that in. Now, this is where I started experimenting with the hair a little bit. again, I ended up not liking how it was looking towards the end. I thought maybe the hair needed to be longer, or maybe there needed to be more kind of hanging down. I just didn't like how it was turning out, so I just scrapped it and started over. So this is still not what the final version is going to look like, but if you want to do something unique, you definitely can. And now we're going to add a new layer for the wings. We're actually going to end up doing these in two different layers since they're overlapping and we want to add definition. So grab that, it's called dark red, but it's really kind of like a purple. Grab that color, let's shape and fill this wing in, and then we'll add a new layer below it and do the other wing. And this is where I decided to change the hair. I didn't like it, so to just delete that layer, you can swipe left and click delete. You can also clear that layer if you want to do it that way. But I'm just going to add a new layer, do the hair over, grab that brown color, grab that circle brush, and just go back to kind of the original shape that I had here. And now that we have the basic shapes for the fairy done, let's go ahead and alpha lock all of those layers so we can start adding some details. I'm going to start with this light yellow color for the fairy wings, and then I'm going to make sure that I have the circle blend brush. I actually had the regular circle brush added here, but I want the circle blend because I want to add a little bit of softness to these wings. I don't want it to be such a stark white. I will add, or stark yellow. I will add some of that in here just to lighten it up a little bit, but not as stark as it was using just the circle brush. And now we're going to work on the clothing here. I'm going to add some of this dark brown as a shadow for the clothing here. I'm just gonna add a little bit to the left, we'll blend it out, and then we'll add some other kind of highlight colors here as well. And then we're gonna add some highlights and shadows to the face as well. And then the hair, we'll add some highlights just a little bit. I don't want to go too heavy-handed with this either, but we'll just add a little bit of highlights here, blend it out. And now the cup is one of the last things we need to do before we work on the ground and background area. So we're gonna add some highlights, we're gonna add some shadows to this, and then I am going to add some steam coming out of the top to show that it is a warm drink that this fairy is drinking. And I'm going to use this very light yellow, that circle blend brush. We're going to put this on the same layer as the cup because you're just going above it, you're not drawing over it. So you can do that same layer, just make sure it's not set to alpha lock. And then we're just very lightly add in some of that steam above the cup. And now we're going to work on the background and the ground layer. So add a new layer, bring it all the way to the bottom, grab that square brush and start adding in some of this dark brown color across the bottom here. And you don't have to be perfect when you're putting these colors in. We're going to do a Gaussian blur, but grab that square blend brush when you're adding these other colors just to blend it a little bit. And then we will add in some lighter color here and then do the Gaussian blur, which is just under adjustments. You click Gaussian blur and then you can drag it across to the blurred effect that you're looking for. And now we're going to add a new layer above that background layer. This is for the foreground now. And so grab that darker greenish color, add that to the base here. And then we're going to grab in some of these other colors to blend it just to give it a little bit of definition. So some of these lighter colors. Then we will add the shadow underneath the flower here in a second. And we will do a Gaussian blur on this as well. And for that shadow, I will use the dark brown color here. It will make it a little bit darker. I'm still using that square blend brush here, but we're just gonna add some of that shadow here now. If you want to smooth out a little bit better, not make it look so square, you can grab that circle blend brush like I'm doing here. And there we have our fairy flower sketch. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this magical fairy sketch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let me know what you'd like to see next. And remember, you can find the free template, fresh download, everything you need to follow along in the description down below. Thank you so much for being a Patreon member, and happy sketching!